What is up, y'all? In the spirit of UFC 309, Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic, I decided to create a video going over the things Dana White has seemingly forgotten about over the last few years. That's right, I'm talking about Jones's criminal history and his track record of abusing anabolic steroids. Before I get any comments claiming that I'm just a Jon Jones hater, I'm here to tell you that everything I share with you is public information, and I will provide the links to every article I will show throughout this video. And by the end of this video, you will be convinced that Jones has done a lot of things that are not only shady, but had he been a part of any other sports organization like the NBA, NFL, or MLB, his ass would be out of a job at this point. Now, for the fans who just recently got into the sport or don't really know what I'm talking about, in a few words, this man Jones should be behind bars. We go as far back as November of 2015, where Jones has been arrested for a hit and run battery of a pregnant woman. Quote, Jones said that he hit one car, which then collided with another car, resulting in a pregnant woman breaking her arm. But he claimed that he assumed no one was injured since he wasn't hurt. Jones said he freaked out and fled the scene because he assumed that the police would think he was driving under the influence of alcohol. A couple of things to note. Jones has assumed that no one else was injured because he was fine. Really shows where his priorities were at that point. But you look at what the police told ESPN, and there's a little bit more details. According to the police report, witnesses saw a man fitting Jones's description leaving the silver SUV that struck the woman's vehicle before stopping and returning to the car to grab a large handful of cash. The man then shoved the cash into his pants and fled the scene. Tessier identified the vehicle left behind as a rental. A marijuana pipe with marijuana inside it was found in the car. No other drugs were found. It doesn't directly say that Jones was zooted as fuck while driving, because Jones accepted a plea deal with the New Mexico State Court and was granted a conditional discharge, which included terms of 18 months of supervised probation and 72 speaking sessions with youth groups. If I were part of a youth group, I don't know why I would be listening to Jon Jones, because I don't believe he even takes his advice seriously. Just look at what he did in July of 2019. Jon Jones was accused of assaulting a strip club waitress. Jones is accused of placing a waitress in a chokehold and slapping her genitals during an April visit. Court records showed a bench warrant was issued for Jones when he never attended a bond arrangement last month. Now, maybe this one, it wasn't as big compared to all the other cases I'm going to be talking about after, because there probably wasn't enough proof and the case was ultimately dismissed. But from here on out, you're going to notice a certain pattern with Jones victims, if I were to call them. Next one, I'm pretty sure many of you watching this video will know before, but if you don't, Jon Jones was arrested in 2021 for domestic battery of his fiancée, Jessie Moses. An account taken from a Caesars Palace security guard stated that Moses came to the desk and asked for a key to her room. Security guard observed blood on Moses, who cried when asked if she was okay. Moses explained she did not feel safe going back to the room and she was taken with her children to the security office. Once there, Jones's youngest child asked security, "Can you call the cops?" Once again, Jones has gotten himself arrested due to his actions while under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and the victim happens to be a woman. He also pled a no contest, which means that he will serve out as a punishment as if he were guilty of the crime. I'm not here to assume anything, just pointing out a common trend here, folks. And if you still do not believe Jones despises a particular group of people and is a complete menace to society, let's just look at what he's done recently. In March of 2024, when Jon Jones was accused of threatening violence against a drug tester who was there to collect his urine samples. Quote, UFC heavyweight champion Jon Jones has been accused of threatening a drug-free Sport International worker during a recent sample collection at his home in Albuquerque, New Mexico. According to an Albuquerque Police Department incident report acquired Saturday by MMA Junkie, the worker said Jones appeared intoxicated and also took her phone for a period of time. The incident report also indicates a summons citing two offenses, assault and interference with communications. I understand that he pled to another no contest, but this is kind of the Jon Jones cycle. He gets drunk or high, allegedly threatens violence or beats the shit out of women, negotiates something with the US justice system, then proceeds to claim his innocence on Twitter. Only now, the Albuquerque courts said Jones is not allowed to consume drugs or alcohol. I don't know how they would enforce that, but maybe that solved a few things because Jones has not done anything since, which is honestly rare. You know what? Maybe I'm just hating on Jones a bit much. I mean, regardless of his actions outside of the UFC, that shouldn't conflict with his legacy inside the cage. He is the undisputed GOAT after all. Now, this is the common argument people use to support Jones. I kind of get it in a way because it's so rare to see someone so skilled, crafty, and creative as Jones, especially for someone fighting at a heavier weight class. And outside of Dominic Reyes, he did defeat everyone else technically, but you look at how Jones achieved his wins sometimes, and it's just very sketchy. Feels very manufactured by the UFC in a way. And I'm going to talk about times Jones tested positive for PEDs, but I'm also going to be talking about what lengths the UFC took to protect Jones for so long. In 2016, Jon Jones was supposed to fight Daniel Cormier in a rematch, but was ineligible to compete after testing positive for Chlomid and Letrozole. Clomiphene is a drug that mimics the selective estrogen receptor modules when, in the case of males, potentially increases testosterone levels. On the other hand, letrozole is an anabolic steroid that prevents the formation of estrogen that reduces the unwilling and feminizing effects of anabolic steroids. 1 year later, at UFC 214, Jones was eligible to fight DC in a rematch, and after a back and forth fight between the two combatants, Jones landed a flush head kick and eventually finished DC with ground and pound. Unfortunately, this fight was later turned to a no contest after Jones tested positive for turinabol. I'm not coming here as a medical expert, but I believe it is important for people to know what turinabol actually is. Without getting into the exact details, turinabol is an anabolic steroid that aids in muscle growth and recovery. This is very important considering what I'm going to show you next. December of 2018, Jon Jones was scheduled to fight Alexander Gustafsson in a rematch. Unfortunately for the UFC, the Nevada State Athletic Commission found turinabol in Jones' system and they deemed Jones ineligible to fight. The UFC then moved their event to Englewood, California. Note that after Jones' successful defense against Gustafsson in the rematch, he was tested for trace amounts of turinabol. Also in March of 2019, Jon Jones defeated Anthony Smith in his next title defense at UFC 235. Once again, he tested positive for trace amounts of turinabol following his fight with Anthony. Again, USADA confirms this after Jones fought Anthony Smith. I don't think Smith even bothered to complain because the UFC were probably going to send him a good check anyways. So, fair play to him. But the point I'm trying to get at is that Jones has been abusing turinabol and other drugs for years, but the UFC has been shielding Jones from public backlash for the longest time. The UFC literally changed how much turinabol can be in your system for the drug to be considered significant in his upcoming fights. The UFC told USADA to release Jones' drug test after all of his fights, and people still act like his fight with DC is not a no contest. That brings me to why I decided to make this video. I'm speaking as a UFC fan who got hooked into the sport about 3-4 years ago. Let me just say this. The UFC does not give a fuck about the current fan base. As far as I'm concerned, Jones is a relic of the distant past. Not because he's washed, but the best fighters on the planet are currently Islam Makhachev, Alex Pereira, Ilya Topuria, Dricus du Plessis, and Tom Aspinall. If Jones were to fight Tom Aspinall, I wouldn't even bother to make this video, but fighting the dead corpse of Stipe Miocic, who has not won a fight since 2020, does not do anything for Jones when you compare him with the rest of the top fighters on the current roster. Even if Stipe miraculously goes the distance without looking like an old man throughout the fight, Unless Stipe knocks out Jon Jones, you know the UFC is going to rig the shit out of the scorecards and give Jones rounds that he's clearly lost. Like, just look at what he did. Look what they did for Dominic Reyes. Fuck Jon Jones. Fuck Dana White. Fuck the UFC for putting on this dog shit main card together. I hope Stipe Miocic wins, retires, and foils all of Dana White's plans. Unfortunately, that isn't very realistic, however, and even if Jones takes Stipe to a lackluster decision, you are going to hear Dana rim job Jones like there's no tomorrow, while shitting on Tom Aspinall and all of his current fighters that are actively fighting. Like and subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.